With us right now, Theresa Truong. Theresa, thank you so much for joining us. You are the founder of Loop Link Inc. And we're going to talk about a very, very important message for every business founder and CEO to listen up to. And I just want to say thank you so much for joining us.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me.
All right. So Theresa, from a high level, what does Loop Link do?
Yes. So from a very high level, Loop Link Inc. is a management consulting firm, and we help small businesses optimize and refine their business operations so that they can run more streamlined, more smoothly, and without the founder's direct or indirect involvement.
Yeah, isn't that the dream? How often do you find this the case when you're just chatting with business owners that CEOs are they're just overtaxed, overwhelmed, they're just fully consumed in their business? And, they signed up for this deal because I think, they wanted to make a big impact in the world. But I think ultimately, the allure of being able to have a little bit more time freedom, it's very compelling. But the reality is, unless you're very proactive about making that happen, it's very, very easy to create I don't want to even say a full-time job. I want to say 3 full-time jobs is not out of the norm.
Yes, that's right. And, it just really, I can't express how often I've seen it, particularly if you're in the business building phase where, you took a risk and you dove into business because of that dream, that flexibility, that freedom. And just the ability to choose, your own path, your own initiatives. And very quickly, as you begin to build your business, you get swallowed up in all of those hats that you have to wear, from being your accounting department to being your marketing and sales, and then also continuing to run behind the scenes operations as well. And very quickly, CEOs are finding themselves working 50 to 70 hours a week, and that just drips into their weekend as well. And slowly, they just kind of started seeing their freedom fading.
Yeah. All right. So how do business founders and CEOs get themselves free? Theresa, listen, I'm with you. I don't do a lot on the fulfillment operation side of things, but I definitely have a very full schedule. Like I'm like maxed out, and I'm okay with that short term, right? So I've got, we've definitely got a plan. But you got to help me out. Where do I go? How do I start on this?
Yes, the biggest thing is to really ask yourself, what do you see yourself doing in your business? Because sometimes, CEOs can have different capacities, have different passions, and have different skill strengths as well. Many of my CEOs who I work with, they love marketing, they love sales. And so that's where they still want to be involved in their business.
Yes.
And that's where they really can continue to build their business with sustainability and scalability. And so usually we start there in really defining, what their role will be, and then where they really need to start filling in the gaps for. And usually a lot of the times it starts off with the administration area, because, you're still answering emails, you're still trying to send out invoices, you're still doing a lot of the low level tasks, as you will. And so a lot of it is just really defining the buckets in your business, and then make a strategic plan on how you're going to be able to support those areas of your business and reclaim a lot of your time back from. And we're in a digital space now, or era, where we have so many different types of tools and platforms that can really help automate a lot of those functions in our business, but also be able to train a team that will be able to oversee and manage those areas for you.
Yeah. Yeah. So if somebody, and let's talk about the sales side of things, because that's where I spend all my time. So thankfully I've got some really great operations managers and, director of operations who she's just absolutely fantastic at doing what she does. But what happens, particularly if someone is, let's say they have, they're doing account-based marketing, right? So, it's like everybody wants to talk with the owner, right? And it's like, I don't know how I can free myself from this when, the customers want to talk with me. What can they do?
Yes, and I think a huge part of it is in the way how you are addressing it with your customers as well. Usually, I've seen this over and over again where it is truly like, the CEO who's holding the initial relationship, but how do you start branching it beyond yourself? It's by really starting to power up the team behind you. Me, my team, and I. Let me introduce you to my account manager. Let me introduce you to my sales manager. They're going to take care of you as much as great as I would. And so it's really starting to go from I to we. And that's the hardest jump because a lot of the customers and the relationships that you hold really want to continue to tie, keep that tie together, right? But once you start expanding it to the we, then we start formulating what would be the ideal schedule for the CEO to then continue to build upon those relationships, but not necessarily as much as it once was. So for example, if you were talking with your customer on a weekly basis, maybe you can touch base with them on once a month or once every 2 months, still holding on to that relationship, but it's more so of like a check-in to see how your team is performing or building upon that relationship and how you can continue to improve that.
Yeah. So when you start working with someone, what does engagement look like? I mean, what's that process? So I'm just trying to think of, someone is like currently, they're running the company, they're overwhelmed. How do you work with them?
Yes, initially what we would do is a high-level consultation. It's very important to really understand where the state of union is within the organization, within the business, and to really understand how involved the CEO is in their business. And so usually if it is a CEO with a micro team with 1 or 2 team members, we kind of really start diving into what the process flow looks like. So what are the different areas that currently exist in the business? So for example, the sales and marketing, and then fulfillment, and then also as well the follow-up system. And if one of them is absent, then we start diving into to see where the gaps are. So which means what's working, what's not working, where are the constraints being felt in the business process, where do customers seem to fall off in their customer journey as well? Because in a lot of the account-based businesses, onboarding seems to be the trickiest part because if onboarding is not fluent and if it's not succinct, that's where we see a lot of the issues start, transforming or showing up during fulfillment. And so those are some of the elements that we kind of tackle through the discovery process. And then if we find that there's a good fit to continue working together, then we start my own onboarding process with the clients.
Yeah. Yeah. And so share maybe some stories or a case study or someone that you've worked with and kind of what was the before and after?
Yes. So one of the, I guess, case studies that I've seen that I can share with is a SaaS-based company, a software as a service company that I worked with a few years ago, or just pre-COVID. And, when I first started working with that company, I was brought on to do more coaching with his team. So that way we can really close some of the gaps that were being felt in the process side of the business, the operation side of the business, because as much as he was able to bring in new clients, we had really high churn rates. And so one of the elements that we wanted to focus on was how can we streamline a lot of the client onboarding process and also the client check-in process. And so I believe we had about, well over 10% of churn rates when I first started working with them. And very quickly, we realized where the gaps were, which was in the follow-up of the communication. And so we started developing plans, templates, and just a recurring structure so that the team members or the account managers can really reach out and touch base with the customers as we go through the onboarding process. And once they started, utilizing the platforms. And so by implementing certain things where it was I consider it as a domino effect, where it's just one piece of the process that brought in a lot more ROI. So it had a trickle effect through that. And so by being able to nail down that one marker, that one milestone, we were able to really turn around how we were performing onboarding and also increase the capacity of onboarding as well. So that itself really started bringing in more capacity, more clients, but also being able to grow the team, because now we were able to replicate a lot of that process and hire more customer success managers. And so we were able to simultaneously reduce the churn rate, but also increase the sales at the same time.
Yeah, I bet. What do you see? I love that we're talking about onboarding and, that process. Do you get involved in the sales side of things as well? Like, so for example, someone might come to you and like, listen, I've got like 40, 50 people in play. We're not closing them. Like everyone's like, they want to buy, but then I don't know, coming up with that more frictionless way to just kind of get them moving in. Is that something you've addressed?
That isn't something that I addressed, because I work in my zone of genius, which is more so around processes, operations. And so usually I'd like to stay away from the sales side of the strategy, because, as much as I can, effectively manage my own sales process, I just am more behind the scenes. And so usually I work with the CEOs. They understand what their sales strategies are already. And then we just build the systems to be able to streamline that. So for example, if they know that we have a leads, like we have high lead generation, but we're not able to quickly capture the information or turn over that information within 24 hours. That's where we start assessing the systems on how we can really start streamlining that, disperse it to the sales team, and capture the information. So that's the part that I work within, not necessarily the sales strategy piece itself.
Why do you think that there are so many, when you start working with someone, they don't see the opportunities for efficiencies in the way that you might see them?
Yes. I think a lot of the times it's because the CEO is so close to the forest. When you start out, you're building the plane as you're starting to fly it, right? And so some of the strategies, the processes that we just kind of like pushed ourselves into, just made it work. But it may not necessarily be efficient for someone else to do it, or to delegate and make it an quote unquote an assembly line, to be able to streamline that process, right? And so usually it's really good to bring in someone who is who has a fresh objective, to be able to see where some of the log jams could be, see where some of the constraints could be, and where some of the efficiencies can be really be brought in. So instead of having it 10 steps, maybe you can reduce it down to 6 or 7 steps and still produce the same results.
Yeah. All right. So Theresa, your website, and let's pull this up. I lost my window. Oh, this is so embarrassing. This is so amateur hour. Dear Theresa, your website, please share the URL.
Sure thing. It is
Loop Link.
Oh
my gosh. We're running a professional operation here.
It's all good. It's all good. Tech happens, right? Yes, but you can find me at looplinkinc.com. That's LOOPLINKINC.com.
And so we'll talk about like when someone goes to looplinkinc.com. Thank you. What should they do? What should they look for?
Yes. So if you're starting out with just really just refining your operations and building out your systems, I would definitely say look for a lot of the free resources that are on there. I have a free SOP bundle that you can download and start building out your own SOPs for. And so there's various different playbooks that you can also take a look at to bring into your wheelhouse as well.
Yeah, I like this. What's in the SOP bundle?
Yes. So within the SOP bundle, it'll give you a table of contents where you can actually do a brain dump of all of the processes that you are currently doing currently have in your business. You'll also get an SOP template where it'll walk you through how to build an SOP. and then SOP is a standard operating procedure. And then also as well, it'll give you a instruction guideline on how to really think through what kind of SOP you want to build, because a lot of times we think that we have to build out or write out everything, but that might not be the case. You want to be able to really consider, like, the intricate steps within that activity that you'll want to capture.
Yeah, excellent, excellent. And Theresa, what size companies do you work with? What types of companies? Like, who's a great client for you?
Yes. So I currently work with online-based companies, so digital marketing firms. I work with software as a service companies, and also as well creative consultants. So, for example, an SEO consultant, online course agencies, for example. So in the online space, I am here to help them, from the solopreneur to the I would like to say a small business, so up to a team of 20 or 25. That's where we can have the most impact made.
Yeah, fantastic. All right. So Theresa Truong, again, your website, looplinkinc.com. Go grab the free SOPs. That's very cool. Thank you for doing those. So you've got some other, just kind of like spending some time on your site here. You've got other resources,
Yes.
media, and then they could book, looks like you do coffee chats and you do free consultations as well.
That's right. Yes, I am always open to meeting new friends online and just getting to know people.
Awesome. All right, Theresa, thank you so much for joining us. This has been great. Again, Loop Link Inc.
Yes, thank you so much for having me, Josh. It's been a pleasure.